I'll go over that later. Now we've written 4 lines of code, and what this variable returns is an associative array keyed by your table column names. That's really just a fancy way of saying a really nice variable that gives you all of this data here, row by row. We retrieve our data like doing this. We simply say $return, and then we give it our column name, and then it'll actually give us the data that we want. So each row, that's that. So if we wanted to find all age greater than or equal to 23, this row right here is the only one that satisfies that query. So if we write this, it'll give us user 2. The other 2 will be ignored. Are there any questions on this?
If there are multiple that satisfy, does it just come out all of them?
Yeah, okay, that's a really good question. That's going to be my next slide. Any questions? So, what if we have more than one record? Right? What if we have more than one record that's retrieved by a query? What you really want to say is, keep giving me results until there are no more results. And we learned this earlier with a while loop. So we're going to use a while loop to satisfy this. And that's exactly what you do. You say, while there's still a result, keep giving me records that satisfy my query until there are no more. And here you can see that structure. You can see while return, you print out the username, and then this is your increment right here. Sorry.
If you only wanted, say, 10 results, would you just set a counter and say, while whatever counter is less than 10, turn that?
Yeah, there's also you could do that, and there's also a SQL way of doing this. You can also, in here, you can also specify something called limit, and if you just simply say limit 10, it'll only give you 10. Okay. Once it hits 10, this will return nothing. So, while there are still results, you say you return the username, and then this is your increment right here, so make sure your program doesn't crash. You can say return is equal to MySQL fetch a slot. If you call this again, it'll give you the next result. And then if this is the last result, this returns nothing, and the while loop terminates. Any other questions on this? So now that we've connected to the database, we've gotten a bunch of results. We want to make our results look really structured. We want to make it look like we want to put it in a table. And we can format it. All you have to do is remember that PHP returns HTML. That's the end result. Whatever you put in echo, that is HTML. So you can write HTML in here. So here I made a table. Users that are at least 23 years old. I open a table tag, and then I open table row. And the top one is just my header row, just to let you know what's in this table. And then I start writing table row, table data, table row, close table. Okay, so this is, all you have to do is you have to remember that PHP returns HTML, and so you can embed your HTML within your PHP code. And then every time this is true, it'll return another table row. And then it'll look really nice and formatted. Any questions on this? So when you actually do this, this is what it turns out to be. And this is just a table, and this is your H1 tag. And obviously you can make it look really nice and add some CSS to make it look a little bit nicer. Are there any questions on fetching or grabbing information from your database? Because we're going to move on from that. Okay. Now we're going to get to adding records. It's pretty boring to just continually retrieve things from your database. You want your user to be able to interact with it and maybe say sign up for your website, type in their username and type in their age. So you already know how to do this. You know how to do SQL. Insert into table, field names with some value. And this is the query right here. You literally put the query in here with MySQL query, and that'll execute your insert. And so, what if we wanted to add dynamically? What if we wanted the user to give me a username and an age? You can do this with what you already know, right? You can make a form that asks your user for the username and their age, and when they submit it, you can retrieve those variables that you've got from the username and age into a MySQL query, and you can just embed it into a MySQL query. And you can see that done here. Are there any questions on this? Because this is really confusing. Everyone understands this? The general structure of insert? Yeah.
So when you have the SQL code around the dollar short code username, that doesn't actually just put in the username. Like it doesn't just say dollar short code username. It actually replaces that.
No, actually, in PHP, if you have double quotes, if you start your thing with double quotes, everything you put in $ signs will be treated as variable. So it'll just actually replace this thing. The quote, single quotes is only for the SQL query, just to make sure that if there's any spaces, it doesn't mess with the query. Are there any other questions? Now there's last couple things that we can I want to let you know about SQL. First off is ordering. Sometimes you don't want sometimes you want your results to come out in a specific order. For example, you want them to be sorted alphabetically. So if I want all my users to be sorted alphabetically by username or by join date whenever they sign up for our website or something like that. And you can use a MySQL operator called order by. And order by, what that does is it orders by the field name that you give it and some direction, ASC or DESC, which correspond to ascending or descending. And here's an example query. For example, if I want to select from users where age is greater than or equal to 23, order by username, DESC. So order by all my username in reverse alphabetical order. Are there any questions? Now we're going to move on to a topic that's a little bit tricky. It's something called state persistence. And what that basically is you want a website to remember who you are. If you go to Facebook and you log in, Facebook remembers who you are. Right? Every time you click a link on their website, they know that you're logged in as a specific person. And how they do that is they do something called they insert something called a cookie into your browser. Every time you log in, every time you type in username and password, Facebook puts something on your web browser that gets sent back to Facebook every time you visit a page. So if you recall back from the diagram on PHP 2 weeks ago, there was a flow diagram that every time you made a request to a server, you get the HTTP request, and you also get tacked onto the HTTP request is all your browser's cookies for that domain. And that may include your username, that may include your password, that may include your email, whatever, or pages you visited. So every time you do something, they can track that. So they do this with cookies. And we achieve this in PHP by using something called setCookie. SetCookie simply says, give me something, give me a name, and give me a value for that particular variable. So once you do this, whenever so that person comes back and visits your website, you can access whatever is in that cookie with $_cookie username. So you can say, I can say, you log in as Alan, and I say welcome $_cookie username. Every time you come back to my website, it will say welcome Alan. So it's just a trick to get to basically have the website remember who you are. Are there any questions on cookies? Yeah.
So it can the website can remember who you are even if you haven't logged in yet on that site. Like say you're coming back to Facebook. Is this cookie saying that it'll say hello Alan even if he hasn't logged in yet?
No. So cookies are specific to domains. So a cookie that Facebook.com sets is only for Facebook.com. It doesn't work for any other website. Is that your question?
No, I guess I was just wondering if you have to log in like on Facebook for it to say hello Alan. Like say like this is Alan's computer and he goes to Facebook, but he hasn't logged in yet, but he's been on there before. Would it recognize that?
For a cookie for it to remember who you are, you have to have logged in before. Okay. So usually websites won't randomly, they can't guess who you are.
I think what she's asking is, after you log out, when you go back to Facebook, will it still have the cookie, or will your cookie still allow Facebook to recognize it?
Yeah. Usually what people do is when you log out, all they do is delete the cookie. So that's what log out really is. And sometimes they'll leave something on there saying that you've logged in before, and some other things. But for the most part, when you log out, all the cookies get deleted. Also, if you really want to make sure you log out, your browser has an option to delete all cookies. So that for sure deletes all the cookies that they set on you to set for you. Are there any more questions about cookies?
Did you say that when you log out of a website, a lot of times they'll set cookies so that you have to re-log in?
Yeah, so sometimes they'll set a cookie, not with your username or password, but just a simple flag that says, you've been here before. So you don't visit, they don't serve you some introduction anymore. So cookies can be used for a lot of different things. It's not just for login.
Yeah, like cookies themselves are just a way for the server to put information on your computer that at a later time when you visit the site again, they send back to you. A lot of times we use cookies for logging in, but you can use them in cases where you don't log in at all. It doesn't matter. It's just the way that most logins work or authentication works is some kind of cookie-based system with a session key. So, but you can do cookies like completely independently. So whenever you log into a site from Google, for instance, like whenever you go to a site on the web, typically if they're doing like Google Analytics, they'll put a cookie on your computer, and that'll just help track like your progress as you go through the web. And it sends the data back to Google. But that doesn't require a login or anything. So logins and cookies are kind of separate. A lot of times they go together when you're doing like authentication, but not necessarily. They can be separate.
Are there any further questions?
Let me possibly.
Any other questions? Also, just know that cookies aren't always very secure. There's something that, especially when you go on Facebook, what people can also do is they can actually steal your cookies. If you log into a wireless network, since all you have to do is, all some people do is they take your cookie and make it look like it's you, and they can log into something else too. So you have to be really careful when you implement cookies on your website. Is that it's not a very safe authentication feature. So just know that. I know there's been a lot of stuff around Berkeley that involves that.
So how do you make sure your cookie doesn't get stolen?
On an encrypted network.
You go on an encrypted network.
Or yeah, HTTPS.
For example, if anything with HTTPS on it, is encrypted.